Well, our top story at this hour is the G20 Summit in Japan. Let's take a look at Prime Minister Modi's bilaterals for the day today. Now, PM Modi has met Indonesian President Joko Widodo this morning, just a short while back. The two leaders discussed expanding cooperation in the trade and investment areas. There were also talks about cooperation in defense, maritime and space sectors. PM Modi and President Widodo exchanged their vision of the Indo-Pacific. PM Modi's second bilateral meeting this morning was with Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro. Two leaders discussed bilateral relations and trade and investment cooperation. There was also discussion on agriculture and biofuels in the context of climate change. Now, there are several other bilaterals lined up for today. PM Modi will be meeting Turkish President Erdoğan anytime now. There will be pull-asides with Italian President Giuseppe Conte, Prime Minister of Singapore and President of Chile as well. Before emplaning for New Delhi, PM Modi will meet Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison as well. Well, our principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibil, is in Osaka, Japan, and he has been getting us updates from the G20 Summit minute by minute. He's joining me live again. Good morning to you, Siddhant Sibil, here from India. Now, of course, PM Modi met many leaders yesterday, and today, just shortly a while back, he also met the leaders of Brazil and Indonesia, and he's going to meet many more leaders. Take us through the agenda for India today.
Well, today the agenda is in two parts. First, the Prime Minister's focus at the G20 Summit, what the Prime Minister is going to say and do. We know that there will be a session on climate change, on environment. We know India's track record when it comes to climate change. India was the backer of the Solar Alliance. It's the idea of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In fact, the Prime Minister also got a UN award for this. The idea was mooted during the Paris Climate Change Conference. And of course, the French have been ranking, and so many countries have now ratified the Solar Alliance and are part of the agreement. But other than that, the focus will also be on the bilaterals. Remember, on the first day, the Indian Prime Minister met global leaders, whether it's US President Donald Trump, whether it's the Saudi Prince, whether it's the German Chancellor Angela Merkel, or leaders from other countries. Today, he, of course, has met already two leaders, one from Indonesia, one from Brazil, focus being on Indo-Pacific with Indonesia, and with Brazil, there were other focuses, including the fact that Brazil is part of the BRICS BRICS grouping, and yesterday we saw the BRICS informal meet happening, in which the Indian Prime Minister raised issues such as protectionism and terror. So other bilaterals, we do expect the Prime Minister to raise issues which concerns both the country, whether it's Singapore, whether it's Chile, whether it's Australia. In fact, the Australian Prime Minister had an informal meet in a sense, and he tweeted about it in Hindi. So there were many occasions for the Prime Ministers to meet global leaders, even if it was not a full-fledged bilateral, even if it wasn't pull aside, he got a chance to say hello to many leaders. And this is why these multilaterals are important, because global leaders can interact with each other in an informal setting, especially when they are in the leaders' lounge. So that remains the focus on how the Indian Prime Minister can engage with the world leaders. In fact, it's safe to say that the Indian Prime Minister has interacted with almost all the 20 leaders of the G20.
Right, Siddhant. Also, let's talk about the other big meeting which will be taking place today, which is, of course, the Xi Jinping and Trump meet amid the trade war between these two countries. The entire world will be watching when these two leaders will be meeting today. What are the expectations from other nations when it comes to these two countries coming to a consensus?
Well, the meeting is about to start anytime soon. It was expected to start at 11:30 a.m. And it's way past 11:30 a.m. So we might be getting visuals very soon. Talking about the meeting, well, the entire focus is on this meeting, because this entire G20 summit is happening in the backdrop of the trade wars between the Chinese and the Americans. And we have seen the negotiations have almost have stopped having any kind of negotiation. Both sides have stopped having any kind of negotiation since May. And after that, we saw the US side, the US president imposing more tariffs on the Chinese. And of course, the Chinese press is also not very happy, coming out with various sorts of allegations against the Americans, the American president. But that's the norm in a sense. Talking about why this bilateral is important because both sides will be sitting together hoping to find a solution. But it has a deja vu also, because the same meeting happened in last year's G20 Summit in Buenos Aires, where WION was present. And after the initial euphoria, we saw the both sides not blinking. And now it has become a game in which who blinks the first, because if the Americans blink, then of course the Chinese will claim victory, or vice versa. So clearly, it's kind of a delicate thing which is happening. The only good outcome will be if both sides agree to the fact that they should talk, because as of now, even the talks are not happening between the Chinese and the Americans when it comes to a trade issue. Unlike, of course, we saw yesterday how the Indians and the Americans agreed at least to talk, because with India also, Washington is saying the same thing. But of course, with China, it's at a larger level with the imposition of the tariffs. With the Indians, the Americans agreed, and of course, that was the big headline of the battle between the Indian Prime Minister and the American President.
Right, Siddhant, thank you for getting us all those.